pest snails. You either love them or you hate them. And chances are, if you're watching this video, you have them in some capacity. Today, we'll be discussing all about the various kinds of pest snails, how they get into your tank, their pros and cons, as well as my general thoughts of them. Alright, so pest snails are a term used to describe various different species of asexually reproducing snails, which can quickly leave you from having one snail to 100. The three most common types of pest snails are bladder snails, ramhorn snails, and Malaysian trumpet snails, although I will say pond snails are a pretty common one too. All these guys can quickly overtake a tank and leave many aquarists feeling frustrated. Now, in terms of how they end up in a tank, it's actually pretty simple. The most common way a snail outbreak will end up in a tank is through the transfer from one tank to another. Pretty much, they just hitchhike. This can be either from an individual snail hidden on a plant or driftwood, or it can even be an entire egg cluster from a snail. So if you really want to avoid getting a colony of unwanted visitors, you may want to wash any pieces of new aquarium decor rigorously before adding it to your tank. So for one, pest snails aren't going to hurt any live plants you have in a tank. Rather, they are detritivores. They will focus on eating decayed matter, and many of them will even eat algae as well. Now, they won't eat a crazy amount of algae for you, but I have seen them graze on various green and brown algae. The other thing is that these guys will eat any leftover food that you have in a tank. Either food that fish completely miss or can't reach. So they can be genuinely helpful in that aspect, because decaying fish food can be a big source of nitrites and other harmful stuff if left unchecked. Snails can also be a source of food to your other fish. Now, this is something that I really don't hear get talked about much, so let me explain. Snails are natural prey to fish. They are especially vulnerable when they're young. Since pest snails naturally reproduce quite quickly, this pretty much leaves a natural supply of food in your tank. Now, I'm not saying not feed your fish at all, but having a source of live food is a great supplement to your fish. And it's completely natural food source, and it gives your fish some enrichment when hunting them. Some of the fish that I've noticed eating them are gouramis, betas, peacock gudgeons, and harlequin rasboras. Some fish even go a step further and almost exclusively hunt snails, such as yo-yo loaches and pea puffers. Point is, you could keep a well-maintained balance of snails in order to help feed your fish. Now, pest snails do have a major problem in that if left unchecked, they can grow and multiply out of control. This problem can be as simple as an aesthetic issue, as you may find having 14,000 snails in your 10-gallon tank to not be very appealing. Or it can genuinely be a concerning issue regarding bioload. Bioload is simply how much waste your fish and other creatures are creating. Every tank has a certain limit in what bioload it can maintain. I'll create a scenario to help better explain this. So let's say you have a 30-gallon tank with 12 common plecos and no live plants. Those fish are literally going to kill themselves with the amount of waste they are producing, as plecos are extremely large fish with large bioload. Now compare it to another 30-gallon tank with 12 neon tetras. This tank is going to be fine because neons are a lot smaller and therefore have much smaller bioloads. But if we were to leave an infestation of 12,000 bladder snails, we now have an issue. So a lot of aquarists seem to either love pest snails or absolutely hate them. There's not much middle ground here. However, I'm pretty much in that middle/gray area here. I don't actively go putting pest snails in my tanks, but if they do show up, I don't begin funding an anti-snail war campaign. There's a balance. Having too many snails can cause bioload troubles, and honestly just makes the tank look ugly. But I do value their benefits in a tank, and in general, these guys do feel like an important aspect of the ecosystem. So for me, it's more of just controlling their numbers. At the start of their introduction, they can often be annoying, and at this time, I will actively remove egg clusters and larger individuals. However, as the tank gets past this initial phase and really starts maturing, many of the fish start learning to eat them, and things just kind of balance out. At this point, 3 of my 4 tanks have pest snails in them, and none of them have stayed an issue. Sure, I still see them, but I won't see more than 20 at a time. And to me, that is a good balance. Being able to utilize their benefits and not needing to go on a war campaign to eliminate every last snail is fine in my book. So that was my look at pest snails. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So what are your thoughts of pest snails? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Are you a pest snail supporter, or do you hate them? Feel free to like the video and subscribe if you ended up enjoying it, and I'll see all of you in the next one. Take care.